All right, a quick end of day recap here as we close down the first trading day of the week, of the month, of the quarter. Overall, I think it was a pretty good session. What we are working with on the big picture, as I outlined this morning in the pre-market prep live stream, as well as the notes, is simply a range, right? If we zoom out here over the past 4 or 5 sessions, as I mentioned this morning, what does it look like, right? Sideways. And so I came into the session looking at the reaction versus the prior day low. That was pretty much the main watch. If we look at the chart with the actual levels here, pre-market action, Sunday night futures gapped higher, right? Resolved lower ahead of the open. We do have a bit of buying interest versus the prior day low in the pre-market session. And that pretty much gave way to a killer opening drive trade. About 13 points there before bumping into VWAP, right? Come back down, test that prior day low area, bounce again into VWAP. And so throughout the morning, we did have a lot of churn here, pretty much just trading between prior day low and VWAP. It looks a little choppy. However, when we actually measure what the move is, it's 15 points. And so I'm going to consider that tradable. Despite the kind of choppy nature of this action, if you can get a really good entry versus the actual location that you want to be involved in, you're going to end up with a great trade. So that today, that's either going to be short VWAP or long prior day low. It resolves higher. We test that upside 43.35 level of interest. That was pretty much the first area of resistance on ES, just pulling that again from the near-term chart here, and that pretty much marked the high for the session. Pulls back into VWAP, no real bid there at VWAP. Makes a fresh low. We start to test the 4,300 area, no real follow-through below the 4,300. Again, as mentioned this morning and in the notes this morning, that 4,300 down into 4,290 is a big area of support. It's a huge support zone that buyers are really going to be looking to defend. And so you have some undercuts of the lows here, likely just some liquidity grabs, and it resolves higher, right? Grab liquidity below 4,300. Late shorts are trying to short there, and it ends up being a long. Same thing into the close here. Undercut the lows a little bit, trap some late shorts, resolve higher. So for tomorrow, what are we looking at? Well, I mean, the setup is essentially the same. Is there any change to the daily setup here? Let's look at the daily bar. Not really. Just another bar within the sequence of this range, right? So we do have the 200 MA still right there at 43.06 area, 43.05 area. Again, a level of support, that 4,300. Essentially, still a range trade. So I'll still be treating it like a range depending on, if there's any crazy overnight action or anything like that. Let's assume we open relatively flat. I'll be looking at 4,300. Again, it is an area of support for now. If you start to see that 4,300, really we'll call it 4,290, start to fail, you could get a test of Wednesday's low down into 4,275, and really it's likely going to give another leg even lower than that. Like we talked about, again, in the weekly kickoff and in this morning's notes. But for now, this is support, right? Looking for trades versus support up into 43.35, up into 43.70. Big resistance from last week, potentially up into 43.80, last week's high. Key level for sure. So we'll just see how this range continues to resolve. One potential scenario that we are thinking about, that we're keeping an open mind about, is a potential undercut of last Wednesday's low, maybe a test of this volume point of control right through here, 42.40, 42.30. But again, like I mentioned this morning, we don't want to be anticipating that move. At least I don't. I react to what price is showing me. I don't try and predict or anything like that. And so I'm just treating this like a range until we see a breakout. Very, very simple. So that is the ES trade. Looking at SPY, pretty much the same thing, right? Just trading in a range here. This is the 15-minute chart. failed to really resolve lower into the afternoon. Let's take a look at the levels we had for today. So yeah, this is S2 from the pre-market prep notes. No real sustained trading below S2. Now we're trading back up into prior day range. Look at your volume point of control right here. So this is potential accumulation in this 426 area. Let's check ES. I think it's 43.15, if I'm not mistaken. Where are we at? Yep, 43.14 and a half. So call it 43.15. We'll see if that ends up being potential accumulation or not. So that's the ES play. To recap, just range trade, 4,300 main watch for tomorrow. Again, depending on how price resolves overnight, if we have any action overnight. Looking at individual names, the individual names list was pretty dry. For day trades, there was nothing that was coming up. For swing trades, we're still looking at AMD versus the 200 MA. Missed the initial entry there, so just looking for a potential retest. May not get it, but I can't chase it up here. Netflix, another one at the 200 MA. Watching for entry here. So that's it for individual names. Pretty much going to be another index focused day tomorrow unless there is some fresh news in the morning. Overall, the index, although it is trading within a range, the range is very wide. I did find today's action to be very, very good for an active trader. Again, just trading between prior day low and VWAP all morning. Phenomenal opportunities. We had our test of the level of interest up there. The main thing to understand about this kind of action is that you just want to make sure you're involved in the right location. So trade location is very, very important on a day like today. Any questions before I shut it down here? Making sense? Any charts you want me to look at? Don't see anything in the chat currently. Go ahead and post in the chat if you have any questions, guys. All good? Personally, I was focused exclusively on the longs this morning. There were some great setups versus VWAP. Don't get me wrong. I didn't take a single one. I didn't take a single short today. It was all long plays. My pre-market plan called for a long focus so long as prior day low is holding. You pretty much see we held prior day low all morning into the late morning, and then I think I had another long later in the or earlier in the afternoon, somewhere around here. But strictly a long focused day, just based on the big picture. Not to say that these VWAP entries weren't solid. That's just not my play on a day like today. I try and stick with, again, what the big picture is showing me. That works better for me personally. So, all right. Well, no questions or anything. Thanks for jumping in, guys. Hope everyone had a great day. And we'll do it again tomorrow. See you in the morning. Later.